Zoe. Thank you for being a guest on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, not at all. So, this is Zoe. She's the founder of the hybrid virtual assistant agency, Premier Admin Services. She's building the bridge between EAs and VAs. We're going to start Pally Talk Explores with the three questions that I prepared for you, and then we'll have a quick fire round towards the end.
Mm.
But firstly, can you tell us your career journey to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been working since I was about 13 years old. I started not doing newspaper rounds, but actually working in Avon Cosmetics, which was door-to-door sales. So I used to kind of like walk around my streets and knock on people's doors and sell them makeup. Um, and then I always thought that I was going to be a hairdresser. And I got myself a little Saturday job, but that didn't quite work out on both parties. So I unfortunately got let go from that role, but it definitely wasn't for either of us. And then I started my career journey in the assistant world, which I didn't even realize at the time. So I went and started as a clerical assistant in my old school. Um, and I worked there for about 3 years from the ages of like 18 to 21. Um, and it was amazing. I absolutely loved it. It was such a fantastic role. It was right on my doorstep. But it didn't quite fit in because at the time I was very young. All of my girlfriends were like going away on girls' holidays. I wasn't able to go because I had to take my time off in August, which obviously nobody else wants to be taking time off in August when they can go away in September.
Yeah.
Um, so I knew that I needed to, find something a little bit different, something a little bit more solid for myself. But I literally had no idea what it was that I wanted to do. And I had recently completed a secretarial diploma at Pitman Training. So I thought perhaps I'll continue down the assistant route. That way I'll be able to get a bird's eye view of all of the different areas that I could potentially move into and gain sort of like skill set. So I started to apply for London jobs. And 12 interviews later with JPMorgan, I got in. Became very, very determined because I was like, if I'm going to go anywhere, I might as well go somewhere where it's large enough for me to kind of walk down the corridors and open up certain doors. But I really didn't want to be an assistant. I didn't understand what it meant to be an assistant, and I really loathed it for the first 9 months. And I then did 2 weeks working with a particular managing director whilst their assistant was out.
Mm.
And she gave me some top advice because I made a small mistake. And she laughed at me and she was like, "You have no idea what this role means, do you?" And I was like, "I have like no idea, absolutely no idea. Like an assistant role." And I use the term just. I will wave my white flag, like I definitely like that term. And she taught me what it meant to be an assistant, to be that person who knows everything, that can be 10 steps ahead, that can create a role for yourself, determined against sort of like what it was that you wanted to achieve.
Mm.
And my passion really began to grow for the assistant population and for what I was doing on a day-to-day basis and what I was able to give back to the people that I was supporting as well.
Mm.
Um, so fast forward, I then became a manager at the age of 25 in middle office. And then I was quickly shunted into investment banking for the last sort of like 6 to 7 years at JP, where I had three bankers, one venture capitalist and one person overseas, plus 40 assistants that were part of my team, where I handled like their capacity levels, any HR bits and pieces kind of going on, and generally just sort of like I created events for them for us to be able to network and go out together. And then the last year at JP, I started networking. I've never networked. I didn't know what was outside of JP Morgan. I was very corporate branded.
Mm.
Um, and I wanted more, but I didn't know what that really looked like. So I moved into a chief of staff role in social media, on the venture capital side, because I just loved venture capital. I really liked the people who worked within venture capital and how everything kind of operated, and I really understood it.
Mm.
Um, but I didn't quite get the same fulfillment as being chief of staff to when I was being an assistant at JP.
Mm.
Um, and I started to look at the gaps as to, what does the new world look like for assistants? So hence Premier Admin Services was built. It was a huge leap of faith. My brother really kind of pushed me into helping me do it and face my fear. And now we offer hybrid solutions as virtual assistants to small businesses and founders, and just kind of give back to them, really. And yeah, it's been quite the experience. I never thought I would actually be running my own business at all in the slightest. It's been a bit of a whirlwind.
It has, because you've done so much.
On paper, it doesn't ever feel that way though. I'm like, oh, it's fine, sort of like it's just a career journey. But actually, when you do, sit down and look at everything, you're like, wow, it's been quite the journey. It has been
Yeah. It was when you said 6 or 7 years at JP, I was like, oh my gosh, you were there for a long time.
12 in total at JP.
Really? And just the assistant that sort of taught you the role of an assistant, do you still stay in touch? Because that was a big sort of step in your career as such.
No, I never really got the opportunity to tell her the impact that she
Mm,
actually had on me. And considering that she wasn't even in that sort of role herself, she was the person receiving in the assistant support. So I don't think that, and I don't think I'll ever be able to kind of like reach out and tell her. I've tried finding her, just to be like, hey, do you have any idea, the impact of those 2 weeks have had on sort of like my career?
yeah.
Nearly 20 years later, here we are.
Yeah, exactly. Because she sort of, yeah, she taught you, I suppose, she taught you what was so important about the role, which is why when you sort of took it on from there. And actually, when I started as an EA, in a family office, I had a senior EA, and she taught me everything from not really knowing about the role to then like loving it and knowing that that was my career path. And it just takes that one person, doesn't it? Sort of teach you the importance of it and what you need to know and how you need to go about it, and then you're on your way.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. And then what has been your biggest career win this year?
This year, Premier Admin Services turned one. And for me, that is huge because I think it was only sort of like a couple of months prior to that. You go through so many emotions when you're kind of running your own business. You go through
Yeah.
so many emotions no matter what role you're in, whether you're employed, self-employed, it doesn't matter.
Mm.
But I always had in the back of my head sort of like 90% of businesses fail in their first year. And I was like, I have to
Mm.
make it to my first year. So that was a really big win for me. Celebrated in style, very quietly, but still like celebrated. And it was just a huge milestone.
You said before in the last question, you said your brother really incentivized you to start a business. What was it that your brother sort of encouraged you to do?
So my brother knows what it's like to run his own business.
Yeah.
He has his own small business at the moment.
Mm.
And January last year, and I was like toying with the idea in my head for sort of like 2 to 3 months already, and I was sort of like, could do this,
Yeah.
and starting off on like the mentoring and coaching side of things for the assistants and really give back to them. I didn't have a lot of that from the assistant population when I was like first starting out.
Mm.
I really liked that side of things, and I was like, I could grow it. So anyway, we had a family do one particular weekend because my great aunt was in Canterbury, and that was a really nice way to be able to bring everyone together. But we were in the kitchen and we started talking about it. I was like, oh, I've got this crazy idea, and he was like, that sounds amazing. Anyway, nothing really more was said, and that was on the Saturday. And then on the Monday morning, he texted me and he was like, you have something here. Like you could really
Mm.
do this with all of your expertise and your journey that you have kind of done in the assistant world. Like you could really do something with this. And we kind of went back and forth on text for a little while. 5 hours later, he had secured the domain and built a skeleton website. And he was like, there you go, off you go. Like, there it is. Like, do it. Well, like, what have you got to lose? Like, if you build the business
Yeah.
and it doesn't work, like, you can find another assistant role, but you have to try this. Like, you will succeed with this. And I think having that, I mean, he's older than me, so he's like big brother vibes. Having him turn around and say to me, you have something, really kind of made me pull my socks up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose you then saw it physically on a screen and it became sort of rather than an idea that you've been thinking about for 2 or 3 months, it was suddenly real and you were like, okay, I can do this.
Absolutely. He was the one that initially designed the branding, the colors, everything. So everything that you see, it's been touched up by a graphic designer now, but everything that you see has been built because of my brother, all of the colors and branding and style of
Yeah.
everything.
Oh, that's so nice of him, and it's such a nice relationship you have. Did you celebrate together when you had your 1 year birthday?
I'd forgotten about 2 days before my 1 year. I just messaged him and I was sort of like, guess who turns one in 2 days? And he was like, no way. And I was like, I know. But no, we haven't done anything together. But we did have an evening out. I think it was sort of like 2 to 3 weeks after, where me and him went down to the local pub and sort of like
Mm,
into poker, which was quite nice.
so nice. And I bet the first year has gone by in a flash.
Yeah, massively. And the fact that I'm already a month into year two,
Mm,
again, sort of like still don't know where that time has gone, to be honest with you. It
God.
really has been an absolute roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I think as much as there's been sort of like hard times with sort of like the emotions, like, oh my God, like, is this going to work?
Yeah.
The good has always outweighed the bad.
Mm,
And everything, I think anyone who's looking to start out your own business, and I utilize this in my running as well, like everything's in your head. Like you can keep going, like
mm,
just do it, make those decisions and kind of like push through. Because a lot of it you're just arguing with yourself on a daily basis.
mm.
And 9 times out of 10, it's not as bad as what it actually seems.
No, exactly. And I think it's easier sort of said than done, if that makes sense, because you can
Yeah.
overcomplicate so much. But just a question from me, having started the business too. How do you handle, this is something I've struggled with. How do you handle sort of like the ideas overload? You know, when you've started your business and you're like, oh, I can add this, I
Yeah.
can add this, I can add this, I can add this. Someone's
Yeah.
like, add this, add this, add this. And you're like, how do you sort of, I suppose, focus your energy really? How do you manage that?
Really great ask. And I'm actually doing a talk about this in a couple of months' time. Um, I don't believe in having a 5 year plan, but I do believe in decluttering your head. So then
Mm,
I do have a business plan, and anything that I think of, anything that I would like to do, I shove into that business plan and create an action plan off the back of it. And that means that I can separate actual things that need to be done to the ideas that I then have. And I use it as a kind of something to fall back on. Like it's changeable, everything's subject to change because the world is evolving all of the time. And
mm,
what your idea that you might have had last week might now not be suitable, but actually getting it out of my head and written down on paper really helps me to kind of like focus my energy on what my next steps are actually going to be.
yeah.
Because otherwise things just kind of like whirlwind around, and then you've got to think about, okay, so that's going on with your client. There's always so much kind of taking place that you need to make sure that you capture those moments as to when you're going to focus on what you're going to do with your business and how those ideas are going to go from ideas to something that's being implemented
Mm.
to actually focusing on the work at hand. So yeah, I like to separate that out a little bit.
Yeah, I think I need to join your talk in a couple of weeks because I think that's sort of I've spoken about it a bit to people throughout this last year, but it's like I find it's like yeah, it is like a brain craziness, and you have to just be like, okay, park that. And I like what you said about putting it into your business plan. And I suppose some ideas will fit into your plan, and some will just need to be scrapped or pushed back for a couple of years when you've actually got more headspace.
Okay. 1000%. And like I built Premier Admin Services on values,
Mm,
honesty, communication, kindness. And if my ideas and suggestions don't fall into that remit, like,
mm.
what it is that we're looking to achieve, if it doesn't fall in with the mission statement, then and I normally see that after I've written it down. Like once I've written it down, I can really determine whether it actually fits into Premier Admin Services. And if it
Yeah.
doesn't, it gets bumped off.
Yeah, exactly. I agree what you say. A 5 year plan is it's nice to have if you so you can look ahead, but it's quite
Yeah.
unrealistic because you pivot so much and like you say, things change all the time. Your clients change, your situation changes.
Exactly. I mean, you've only got to use COVID for an example, but
Yes.
bring up the dreaded C that nobody ever talks about. But it's true. Nobody saw that coming. And it really did change everyone's lives.
Mm,
I've been to conferences now where I've spoken to people and they were like, yeah, we got made redundant. We didn't see it coming. Sort of like 5 year plan got absolutely shot to put. But hey, now I have my own business. And I'm like, that's an incredible journey. Like, that's such an amazing story, but you can't plan that
no,
in
exactly.
a way.
Exactly. And if COVID hadn't happened, then they may not have set up their own business. So there's sort of, yeah, it's a funny one, but there's always sort of stories from COVID and businesses that have been set up, which I think in a way is a good thing for everyone. And thirdly, what is the best career advice you've ever received?
So two things. So when I first started at JPMorgan, the guy who hired me, lovely, lovely guy, absolutely love the guy to pieces. He said to me, when you know everything that's going on, you will know everything. It's not about the systems, it's not about the processes, it's about knowing everything that's going on. So, AKA observing how people work, observing people's body languages, observing what they like and dislike, and then everything kind of falls into place. Understanding the goals and objectives. So, it was what he was telling me was, get involved with the business. Just because you've been asked a task doesn't mean that you can't go above and beyond that, and then really kind of understand what that means for doing that particular task. What is it
Mm.
related to? Why are you actually doing that? So that was something that I really kind of took on board, especially after the managing director kind of took me underneath her wing. And then more recently, networking is everything. The assistant world can be quite an isolating place. When we all come together, there's loads of us,
Mm.
but individually within our businesses, it can be very, very isolating. So actually networking and collaborating with other assistants is really, really key in order to be able to move forward. I've come across issues where I've needed like a 2 hour turnaround on a particular task, and I'm like, my guy can't do it for me. So just being able to reach out to my assistant population, who are now just huge collaborators that I love working with, I can turn
Mm.
to them and ask them, and they come from all different types of businesses all across the world. And just being able to have them as a global team, and that's how I kind of foresee the assistant population is we are all one team, just as part of different industries, as part of different businesses, as part of different countries, that where we do kind of come together and unite. So networking is really key.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the both the things you said actually. The it's interesting what your what position was he to you? The gentleman at JP Morgan said.
Was an executive director at the time, yeah.
Because he it's an interesting view because you can be an assistant and not understand the bigger picture of why you've been asked to do this and why this is happening, why this is happening. But I think as an assistant, you are sometimes asked for your opinion on what's happening. And if you've sort of not gone above and beyond to understand why this is happening and the situation behind it, then I think in those situations you could be like, oh God, I don't know. But if you throw yourself into the whole picture, it does help. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. And I presume you had
Yeah.
scenarios like that where people turn to you and go, so what do you think of this? And
Oh, 1,000%. And that
yeah.
could be even non-business related, like they're going off somewhere. So, they need an idea of what to wear,
Mm,
because they trust you, they see you as a trusted partner. And I
mm,
think that's something that's really key. But I think it's really also important to note that, you know, as assistants, there are some assistants who generally want to go in, do their job, do it really, really well, but they're not looking to become that strategic partner or become that person. And it's knowing that actually that's okay.
yeah.
And some businesses love that. Some businesses want you to do the job that you've been hired to do rather than sort of like look for other opportunities. So I think that's really okay. But I think in my situation, I think the guy who hired me, I mean, he took a massive risk. I had no corporate experience at all in the slightest. I was counting dinner money when he hired me, uh,
Yeah.
quite literally.
Yeah.
And but he always said to me, and to this day as well, he was like, there was something about you, and I just felt like you were going to fly.
Yeah.
Which is why, I always kind of involved you and encourage you to sort of like ask questions.
Yeah, I love that. God, what a nice person to have met in your career. And then obviously I totally agree with the network side because that's I
Network everything's
yeah,
correct.
it's amazing the network side. Because the other day we had a member in the WhatsApp group saying Anita Baker in Brooklyn, and our US chat is they were asleep, I think, or whatever the timing were. So I got on LinkedIn to find some Brooklyn assistants and messaged them, obviously not paying attention that they were probably asleep too. But by the time they'd woken up, three of the assistants who I'd never met before, I never talked to on LinkedIn, had replied recommending bakers.
Absolutely. It's
It was
amazing.
it was amazing. And then I sent it to obviously the member
Yeah.
asking, and yeah, it's it's weird. Your network isn't like your nearest and dearest anymore. It's like anyone in the assistant world.
Absolutely anyone. I did exactly the same back end of last year. I was desperate for a venue, real last minute turnaround, private dining, large number of people. And I just posted on LinkedIn and I was like, all right, guys, like I need help. Like, what have we got? And the amount of reposts and the comments and then the emails I was getting, and then the next day I had something sorted, done, dusted. And I was like, this is what it's all about. Like, and again, it's not about being in competition with one another. This is what
Yeah.
we collaboration. And through that side of things comes into the whole new era of EAs, because we're not isolated, we're not alone. We utilize each other to be able to push ourselves forward, which is amazing.
Yeah. And as an industry, it makes you feel like you've got your support network. So yeah, I agree. Losing the isolation side of it's such a win for us because it's a game changer, really.
Yeah.
So now we have our quick fire round. You're the first one I'm running this on. So it's just sort of like whatever comes to your head, what your quick response to them. But it was about 10 questions, but we'll start with what's your go-to AI tool?
Oh, ChatGPT.
That's an assistant's best friend.
It really is. I love it.
What is your favorite podcast at the moment?
Oh, Amelia Sordell.
Is that the LinkedIn Mina sort
That's
of?
a branding one. This
I
is very
saw.
authentic. She talks to a lot of like CEOs and other business founders, and I learn a lot on how to build businesses, how to build engagement and collaboration and network. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
I just
She's
written that down because I saw. Sorry.
had some amazing people on there.
I'm gonna have a listen because I saw her pop up on a LinkedIn Live the other day, and she was running through people's posts, and she was this lady that went on. She went, "Why have you written that? You just explained the situation so different to me, and then you've written this thing that's going to bore everyone." And she was so like matter of fact, and yeah. Anyway, I watched the whole live. I thought it was amazing. But I'm gonna have a listen. And then so next, who is your biggest inspiration?
My dad, which sounds probably really cheesy, but it's true. He's just such a lovely role model to have as a male figure. And I think, I really struggled with women before, now being an assistant. And yeah, he's always been a great role model to me.
Oh, and I've just seen your cat in your background.
Yeah. Like a little ginger blob just kind of
Yeah,
like
I thought I was imagining things and then it leaked. No, I think that's really sweet. What one word would you say best describes an assistant?
emotional intelligence. I know it's two, but
That's fine. Do you prefer tea or coffee?
tea. Oh, no, coffee. Oh, caffeine.
Either. Slack or Teams?
Teams.
Zoom or Google Meet?
Google Meet.
Name a fellow assistant who deserves a shout out.
Oh gosh. Sapna Shah.
And finally, what do you want to do more of in 2025?
I just want to continue helping others. And by that is really broad, not just the assistant population. I love seeing people getting promoted and doing things and really kind of coming out of their comfort zone. But I
Mm.
also love giving back to business owners and founders and watching them win. That really excites me. So long as we continue to do that throughout 2025. And I'd love to grow the team. I'd love to get another virtual assistant on board. So that would be amazing for 2025.
Nice, because you've got a lot going on in 2025, but I think it sounds like a really exciting year. And I wish you all the luck, but thank you for being a guest.
Thank you
Thanks,
for having
Zoe.
me.